Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in. Welcome back to Turn Down for What. Today, we kind of have a momentous occasion for all of us here at Turn Down for What. Going back to the onset of our passion for the F-150 Lightning, all we're waiting up until really May of 2022, it was for them to do their big grand opening. Chris, do you remember what day the big announcement where they like shipped the first one at that event was?
Ooh, I don't even remember. No,
It was in
I want to
May.
say
I think it was May 9th. Nah, May 19th was when they did the original announcement. Um
I'm
I
unprepared.
Yeah, I know. I'll Google it. But yeah, the yeah, I mean basically in May they did their big, it just says May 2022. Thanks, ChatGPT. You're so helpful. In May of 2022, they did their first shipment, but really the first truck started leaving and departing in, basically the early parts of June and July. And so mid-July was when all three of us got our lightnings. When did you get yours, Chris?
Right at the end of July.
End
Right,
of July.
right at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some stuff going on with trains and weird stuff at that point and got delayed. But yeah, it showed up right at the end of July.
Mine was like the 31st of July. So I mean, we
Yeah, I
are
think
technically 1 week away or whatever from our technical 2 year anniversary, but we've all owned our trucks for 2 years now. And that's kind of what sparked the passion for all of us, I think, a little bit more into the EV space, just with how amazing the truck has been. And we've spent a lot of time on this podcast discussing our love of the F-150 Lightning, and kind of wanted to kind of give a recap of the first 2 years of ownership, where we're all at and tentative mileage, and kind of how our experience has been. So, Chris, obviously you on your channel, everybody go follow Chris Bow. It's the Bow family in parentheses. Chris Bow.
yeah, Bow Family EV. I'll update my name so that it shows it. But yeah, Bow Family EV on YouTube. And I've got a bunch of different various videos there, but I am currently trying to put one together for a 2 year recap. I went back to the dealership, Fremont Ford, where I got it. It was the very first one delivered off that lot. Um, so I went and did a video there, just kind of doing a walkthrough of it. I went through, the accident that I got into early on. I went through the gremlins that I had, the different, recalls and problems. I went through what I loved about it. I went through the things that I've added to it as far as like the Putco light up LED, the bed extender, um, painting the um, painting the what's
Calipers.
it called? The calipers. Thank you. Yeah, just all that kind of stuff, right? And just a general overview of it, and then I talk about how I charge it at home. I still need to do that video where I show how I charge it at home and the solar panels and why that works for me. And I talk a little bit about mileage, and all that kind of stuff. Just trying to put that all together before the end of the month, so I can post that, and we can post it on the Turn Down for What channel as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might do a similar video. Me and Jesse at least can get together and show off our trucks and how much he's beat up his truck more than I beat up mine. Um, Jesse, you are at 50,000 miles now. Is that correct?
I keep saying I'm at 50,000 miles, but I haven't quite jumped over the 50,000 yet. I'm at about 47,000, I think. It's amazing once you stop driving to North Carolina and back every day, and once you stop driving to Manassas, Virginia, once or twice a week, it did not gain the miles that it originally did. So currently, looking at my truck that's taking forever, it is not going to tell me how many miles is on it. Anybody else have any issues with the app? I'm having a
The
little bit
app
of
has
issues with the
been,
app.
I'm going to go
Yeah,
on a
the app
tangent.
is yeah.
Today, I had 1% battery. Me and Jesse went on a business trip yesterday. I got back to my house and I forgot to plug it in. So I left for the office today, and Ford, my local dealership, just got in a new set of their chargers, and it's actually going to be the fastest chargers in East Tennessee as of now, because the NEVI deployments haven't come out yet, and the current quickest ones are like 62 kilowatt charge point units.
Just for a very few months.
Yes, soon enough we'll be quicker. However, for right now, it was going to be the fastest charger. I was like, I'll just go stop there for 20 minutes so I can get to the office and back, because I had literally had like 2%, 6 miles of range, like really low. And the Ford dealership's only like 3 miles from my house. So I was like, I'm going to go there, charge for 5 minutes. You can only use per the screen on the charger. They have a card reader, but it said we're only accepting Ford Pass and we're only accepting Ford Pass and the Shell app. I guess that's a partner for the charger. And so I went to the Ford app, and I'll pull mine up, and I can do a screen share. But the charging, like if I click the button for like public charging, it just keeps going back to the original screen and won't go. And then if I go like to charging station, it just keeps going back to the original screen. Like the app just keeps glitching. And
it didn't support plug and charge. If you just plug and charge, didn't work.
And I couldn't
Wow.
get my app to
Bummer.
change the settings, because I have plug and charge turned off because
Yeah.
of the auto charge with Electrify America and some of that.
Right.
And so I turned it off. I was going to go in and try to do that, but I can't do that because my app's broken. And so then it's like the Shell was the other app. So I said, oh, well, let me just use that instead. So then you go into the charge function, and when I went to the Johnson City Ford location, it reads on the app that 0 out of 4, it says all the charging stations are occupied and there's nobody plugged in. And so I had to sit there, and I was like, I called support. I was like, I have 3 miles of range left on my truck. Help me. And they were like, they spent 15 minutes. I turned my car off because it's like 100 degrees here. Turned the car off because I didn't have enough range to turn the AC on, and was sitting there in the heat waiting for support to figure it out. And they're eventually like, I don't know what's going on. So I had to drive 1 mile, luckily down the road, to the 62 kilowatt charge point unit that's at a Hyundai dealership, and sat there for 15 minutes to get enough charge to get to my office and back today. So anyways, I don't know.
Did the Ford?
Yeah.
So I guess two things. One, like, good life lesson for you guys is you deploy yours to make sure that they don't have those types of strange, crazy quirks and problems. But then did the dealer, a lot of times the dealers will put, 2 chargers out front, but have one in the back themselves. Did they have one for themselves?
They have
did you
slow
talk to anybody at the
charging.
dealer?
So I mean, I could have
2.
plugged into the one that's like 10 kilowatts an hour and waited for 2 hours there. But
Yeah.
I had 3 miles of range, and I was a mile away from the other station. I said, I'm going to roll with it. I figured there was enough reserves if I happened to use it to get to that spot, but I made it. Lesson learned: plug your truck in before when you come home with 5 miles of range. Plug it in before you leave the house. But I didn't, and that was a lesson learned. But I don't have good charging infrastructure where we live, and so that was a lesson learned. I mean, in Ford's defense, they just installed these stations. I don't know if anybody's ever publicly used them. I don't even know, technically, maybe they're not even considered operational. But I did call the Ford dealership and said, are they open? And they said yes. And so that's where, like, functionally, it is what it is. But lesson learned.
And how many miles are on your truck? Because Jesse was coming up on 50,000.
I am at 38,000 at the 2-year mark, which, I mean, is a pretty decent amount of miles. But most of these business trips we've been taking have been in my truck, so I think my mileage is ticking up a little quicker than Jesse's now. But yeah, I'm almost to 40,000, which is crazy. I mean, 2 years, 40,000 miles. But the craziest thing that people don't understand is, I have 40,000 miles on my truck, and I've done tire rotations 3 times. That's it.
Yeah.
I've not done, I mean, they topped off my windshield wiper fluid. But, I've taken it to Ford and said, hey, like, what do you want to do? And they're like, let's do a multi-point inspection. And the video is honestly comical. If I can find it, I will attach it right here at this moment, and we will watch it.
Hey, this is Jacob with Johnson City Ford Lincoln. I'm going to walk you through your multi-point inspection. With it being an electric vehicle, there isn't much to look at. Everything in the vehicle look good. All the electrical components look good. It's running good, so it's pretty much a given. But other than that, things we can really check out for you today, which the wear items, which with 10,000 miles, no problems are found. Alignment looks good. Tires are wearing nice and even. You got about 7 all the way even across the tread on all 4 tires. Rear brakes came in at 9. Front brakes at 9, which passed the inspection. Everything looks good underneath the vehicle. Rotors look good. No signs of concerns are found. Thank you and have a great day.
If it showed up, there it is. But you know, it was one of those things. It's comical. It's like they walk around your vehicle, they point at the big, skid plate that's underneath the bottom of the vehicle. They're like, look, everything's fine. And then they talk about your tires, and like that's pretty much all they do, because there's nothing else to do for inspecting a Lightning. But yeah, I'm coming up on 40,000. My tires are starting to get to the point where I believe I'm about to have to get a change. They still have some tread, but they're getting low. But I mean, how many people get to 40,000 miles and have rotated their tires 4 times and that's it? Everything
certainly
else.
Not Jesse.
Yeah. That's because he drives like a maniac and has gone through almost 2 sets of tires in the time I've done one.
No, not possible. And I still can't find on the app the actual mileage of my vehicle. And secondly, now I've got 2 little red circles on my app that will not come off of my Ford app. And when you click on it, it does not show why I have 2 notifications. So now I'm even more aggravated.
Yeah, the app is definitely a work in progress. I think it's fair to say that there's some work to be done in that area. My truck, I'm only at 22,000 miles, so I'm my commute is small. I don't do a lot, and that's with a trip to Long Beach and a trip to Vegas and a couple trips to Fresno. I've done a handful of trips up to Sacramento, but the most of the other stuff is just Santa Clara for the 49er games, driving around the Bay Area and to work, which my work commute is 30 miles round trip. So you're not going to tack on a whole heck of a lot of miles, but that's also why I went with the standard range and not the long range like you guys did, is because I just frankly don't need it and I couldn't afford it. But yeah, it's been fantastic for me, and I'm curious to see how many miles I get out of it, because I'm certainly not hammering it. So I'm hoping I get 40,000 plus out of my tires. That would be great.
The exclusive reason I went extended range was not because I needed it. I at the time when I bought my truck was not doing the amount of business trips I was doing. I never traveled in my personal vehicle. That has since obviously changed with our amount of trips we take with Power Up. But that's something that, at the time I got the extended range solely because I thought, hey, over time, I thought the extended range would probably hold value, which that proved not to be true. None of them have hold value that well. But secondly, degradation, I've said this before on the podcast, I believe, but if in fact I can take it to 300,000 miles and I lose, let's say 10% of the battery efficiency, I'm still technically above what a standard range would do. In a standard range, then you're cutting down, from what's your range, 240?
Yeah, it's averaged that too. Over the course of the 2 years, I have averaged exactly 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So 240 is the average range. Of course, you're not draining it to 0 unless you're going down to 1% or whatever you were at. Yeah. But I reliably get honestly, somewhere between 190 and 210.
But if my battery is operating at 85%, I'm still going to be getting, roughly 280, 270. And so for me, I can own this truck long term, and worst case scenario down the road, I'm dealing with a, basically a standard range. But that's, then I'm not trying to deal with let's say 150 or 180 miles in that situation. But that was a justification. And then the features that I got with the layered extended range, I enjoyed. But that's something that, looking back, it's nothing that I really truly needed. I'm grateful I did it because of the amount of business trips we take now, obviously. But that's something that, it's not major enough difference that honestly, I would much rather, now have a larger range because of those trips. But the average person doesn't need the extended range.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen some posts where they've shown battery degradation on these is not much. 100,000 miles somebody had, and there was very little battery degradation. It doesn't have a lot of
1% or 2%. Yeah, I mean it's
And so somewhere I saw it was batteries tend to do 2 to 3% in the first a couple years, and then it kind of slows down to maybe like 1% a year after that. And so, I mean, after 10 years, maybe you have 90%, depending on how you treat your battery and a bunch of other factors, somewhere in that 93% still left after 10 years. I mean, these things have plenty of stuff, and who knows what battery technology will look like in a decade from now. I mean, you could have
Yeah.
entire battery swaps that are a quarter of the size and go twice as far. Hopefully that happens, but that if you can keep your truck for 10 years, how many people even do that? So
It's true. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm looking at some of the longer range solutions that have since come out. Obviously, cost is the is the concern around that. But
yeah,
with what I have, I mean, it's more than functional to work for what I need. And I think when it comes to the longevity, it's just going to come down to how well we protect the battery packs. And I mean, I don't charge to 100% every day. I'm home charging, which is obviously better than supercharging on the battery cells. And so I think like overall, my degradation on my battery is going to be very good as I approach the 50,000 mile and as I get to 100. Because obviously with the amount of road trips I do supercharge, but I'm not most. I'd say 90% of my charging on the miles I have is home charging, which if you don't know, it's that for our battery health. Don't charge it to 100%. Keep it, the
right.
manual says keep it to 90. Some people do 80 or 85, and keep it under 90 will help with battery health. But two, the more that you can slow charge, the better for the health of the battery. And so that's where at home charging or level 2 charging at spots is going to be a better solution for long term for our battery chemistry specifically. And so that's something that with that being the case, that's most of my charging is from the house, and so I'm able to really, best protect the battery for the long run.
Yeah, and I don't know if Ford will be similar to what Tesla's had because they've got great thermal management and really well integrated as far as their supercharging and their batteries and their BMS and systems and everything. But there was a big study that came out not too long ago where they looked at folks that had supercharged, and there was not any real difference between the folks that were having the unlimited regular supercharging and those that were doing it at home. Now, obviously the Ford's battery management system and coolant system and battery technology is different fundamentally than what Tesla's using. So will that translate to Ford and other manufacturers? Who knows? But I'm not even convinced the supercharger is hurting you. So we'll see. These are kind of unanswered questions as the technology grows. I think I'd love to hear, like, if you could change one thing, if you could improve one thing, like what would be the one aspect of the truck that you'd love to that you would make your experience better? Because I
For
think we all
me,
love this.
yeah,
Yeah, we love the quiet, the speed, the power, the size, the
I
comfort.
have zero complaints about the features of the truck and the truck itself. I wish it had 800-volt architecture. That's just a tweak, but when I go to a charging station that's 300 kilowatts and my truck only wants 150 and I have to charge twice as long because the functionality of basically the ability for the battery to accept it. Now, obviously that just talked about battery health, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But that's I was at a supercharger yesterday, and I went to two different superchargers yesterday in our trip, and one I only got to about 155, 160 peak, and I think it was limited just to the heat of my system because of how hot it was and how much we've been driving. But two, the second charger we did, I got like 140, and then it was dipping down into the 90s, and that was charger based. But nonetheless, I want to see, I would be completely content with my
200
range and
kilowatts.
all the features of my truck if I could charge and get 250 speeds, obviously max. And then as it gets up, you can have the charge curve bringing into the upper ones and stuff. But my charge curve is max 170 is probably the most I've ever seen it. And then it'll
10 minutes.
trickle down, into the 150s for the most of the charging session and go down. And that's not charger related. That is 100% the vehicle. And Ford was, I think, doing a lot to best, keep that curve low and the wiring and, basically keep that. But Rivian and the Cybertruck and all these other ones that are coming out have the ability. The Chevy Silverado, we reviewed that on the channel. It can charge
Chevy's a
up to
beast.
400 kilowatts. Like you can plug it in, and there's been reviewers that are getting like 380 speeds. Obviously, it's a 200 kilowatt battery pack, but like even if I could get in the 200s, my charging sessions. I went to the charger yesterday. Jesse and I plugged in at like 10%. We went to the Ford dealership. We got to see a new Lightning. It was one of the newer year models. Noticed the other charge door had gotten removed. There was some cool tweaks with it we can talk
Yeah.
about at another episode. I want to put mine next to a new one and kind of compare. But anyways,
Yeah.
we went and viewed the charger, used the restroom, walked across the street, grabbed a sandwich, walked to the gas station, grabbed an energy drink. 40 minutes later, came back to the truck, and I was at 50%. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be at a charging station for more than 30 minutes, or else it needs to change. So that specifically was charger based, but even with higher speeds, that level of charging, I think, is something that can be improved in future year models.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty consistently taking me 45 to 50 minutes to go from 10 to 90%. Keep it in mind, I have a standard range, doesn't quite charge as fast, or, the charge curve is a little bit different. So, but yeah, it'd be great to see more from that. I don't know if they can do anything with the current model, unfortunately.
It'd probably be in the T3. I mean, it has to be in the T3.
It's got to be. Yeah. And 800, I don't even know that I'm that caught up on 800 because I'm so in love. I'm such a fanboy of the Tesla charging network, and it can't support 800. So hopefully, eventually, it will. They'll switch out those V4 cabinets and have something that actually can do 800. But the Lucid can't do it. The Cybertruck can't do it. The Kia platform can't do it. And if we had 800, it couldn't do it either. And I just so rely on that. So if they can get 200 plus kilowatts out of 400, I'd love that. I think for me, it's the software. The software I just wish was better. It really Android Auto and Apple CarPlay do the heavy lifting, and the navigation is just such a mess at this point. This many months into my love for the Tesla supercharging network, you just can't find it easily.
I never use Ford Nav. I mean, it's obviously that routes it for you, but I mean, I don't even use Apple Nav and some of the other ones because they overcharge, like they get you to overcharge at weird times. I think they're calculating peak, but for me, I want to stop one time. And that's something that obviously they're trying to put a safe net, but usually I'm researching it on my own. If I'm going, like yesterday, I went to Atlanta and I knew I'm going to this spot and I'm going to charge right here. And if that's not available, then this one's available. And so I had a plan, but I'm doing that research in advance because the nav is terrible. And even Apple and Google, I mean, there needs to be, how do you want your experience? Do you want to go down close to zero? I don't want to have to stop at 20% when I can get home. For instance, we had the ability, I got home without charging, but it wanted me to U-turn to go to another charging station because it didn't think I could make it. And, I knew based on my metrics that I could make it. But the nav systems are it's interesting figuring out how to deal with charge curves and how to get from A to B.
And it auto suggests things, and I can't remove one if I want to in Apple CarPlay. If I want to say remove this and replace it with that, I can't do it the way you can with Tesla Nav. I'd love to have battery temperature, and I know kilowatt is coming, but I'd love to know what it is at, coming off the cord, coming into the battery. I'd love that nerd data. I'd love to see a charge curve, those kind of things. The software I would love to be able to, talk to the software people and see what's even possible. Because some of it I just don't think is. With the modules and all the people involved, there are some things that I just don't think are possible. And I know we're short on time today. It's a short one, but Jesse, what about for you, man? If you could have one thing to make your Lightning a better experience for you, what would it be?
So obviously, I've probably traveled more on the interstate than anybody here in my truck. So you always look at your data and say, okay, if you're in a gas vehicle, you're going to have this on the highway, this in the city. So I don't think there was enough to let me know that in my highway, it's going to be probably 240 for me when I'm going 65, 70. Now it's wintertime, and there has been times where I've set it just at 70 because it was going to be rough. And that ended up being a lot more than what I was expecting. So and there has been cases, believe me, that I have tried to do 65, and I have done 65. I think Josh gets better gas mileage because he did go for the tonneau cover over the back. I watched Mythbusters, and at one time they had one where there's a bubble from a vortex. So I was like, okay, it doesn't work. But I'm wondering if it will work because of that. So
Kyle Connor needs to test that, man. We need that tested.
That would be a good one tested because, or I just need to add it to mine and see where I'm at. But I do think
I have the cover. I mean, I could remove my cover. We could do a 100-mile loop, and then we could put the cover back onto a 100-mile loop on the exact same loop and see the
There you go. That would work.
Be an awesome.
That would
awesome,
work really
awesome
well.
Video.
So that's one question. The other one is, the Chevy Silverado obviously has higher mileage. We've been told that Ford does not want to go with a large battery pack and you're hauling around that extra weight. Lighter is quicker, things like that. But in this case, I have watched people do interstate travel, and instead of getting 450, they're getting 420. Still, that's a lot less mileage loss than what I have when I'm running on the interstate. So if I could say if there's anything I would like to see, it would be the ability to run on the interstates, and that's what your number is if I'm driving from Nashville to where I live, what is that true mileage going to be? So and I would like for it to be over 300. That's not
Yeah.
much to ask for.
Well,
Even not driving nuts or anything, that is a number I can't meet.
I think the big thing they would need to do is right now is 2 permanent magnet motors. And so you just can't get much
Yes.
efficiency. You need the back
Yeah.
to be permanent magnet. You need the first to be induction so that when you're on the highway, you can spool that down, get your efficiency going. And that kind of thing would go a long way if that was just not a permanent magnet. There's just nothing that can be done. It has got to turn. So, yeah, I think good call outs. I think hopefully they'll incorporate a lot of those ideas into the next gen.
Chris, are you going to give
Oh,
us
you
your
mean-
one
Yeah, and
tidbit, or are you? Is that saved for your video?
No, I think my one was the software. It was the software piece.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Yeah.
it for what I do and how I drive it. I mean, I just love the dang thing, and it's so smooth, it's so quiet. It's great for my family, my 2 kids, plenty of room for them to grow into it as they become teenagers. I love the Pro Power. I love the frunk. Obviously, I've got my what the frunk into it. It is an absolute dream vehicle for me. It's the best vehicle I've ever owned. I love any excuse I can have to drive it. The software is just I do in the video that I've already done. There's a point where I go to show the charge software where you go to search for Tesla superchargers. You can't use it while you're driving, so that's you have to literally stop to find the Tesla superchargers, and it took, I swear to God, it took 30 to 45 seconds to load. It's slow. It's tough, man. I really wish the software, had a lot of the features, the pet mode. I know there's some stuff coming where it's going to be able to leave Pro Power on and still have the truck off, and it's going to show the kilowatts on the driver screen. So there's some other stuff. Some of that's coming. I would love to know. I would just love to know what's possible, and what isn't. And I just think there's the navigation for me is just the stuff that needs to be better. I want it to be on like real time, like where I can just see all my chargers on the screen and I can touch it and I can say, I'm going to go there. I want to see how many people are using it. I want to see, I can remove it. I can add it. And right now there's just no way to do it. And I did a video on my channel where I compared Apple CarPlay to Android Auto, and they both have things that I didn't like about them. Neither one of them has Tesla charging integrated into it. Apple at least integrates with your BMS, so it can tell you your anticipated state of charge. That's a plus.
Yeah.
There is no manual precondition button. So all those little things. And I mean, I'm really nitpicking at that point, right? But it's
yeah, absolutely.
It's all software. It's all the software stuff. The truck, and we've talked to Martin before about how it's easy to repair. You can get parts for it. It has all these accessories and things that can go to it. I mean, just as a physical truck, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think spot on, Jesse, with, if that had better range at highway speeds, that would go a long way. And I think spot on, Josh, with the charging being more solid. And then if the software was just there to wrap up that trifecta, I think, man, that's one heck of a truck at that point. It already is, but that would just really elevate it.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping to see those things in T3 as kind of like the plus one, but that's something that obviously we'll have to see.
Sure.
Well,
as that announcement
T3, I keep going back and forth with this, but for me, I do believe T3 will be my next vehicle just because it will be made in Tennessee. We have chargers in Tennessee. I think we'll have a very big connection there. We've looked at other units. I think Josh has a couple that he's wanting to get and try out. So that'll give me the, testing of it. I still go back to the fact that my truck has had no issues. I've had no issues with this truck. I've had other trucks that's burnt down. I've had other trucks that's blown up. Even when you do the maintenance on them, I have a friend of mine who has a competitor truck that is diesel that after 2,600 miles, not turning it up, stock truck, was driving down the interstate and hand grenaded the motor that's in it. So we always have those issues. But for me, even though Ford's been kind of beat up this year with recalls, I can't say anything negative about my truck. So that's really given me confidence in the fact that that's kind of where I want to go. Love to see it over 400 miles. Can they do that with a smaller battery? Because the other aspect of it is profitability.
Sure.
Chevy has a big battery pack, what is it, 200 plus kilowatt battery pack, you
Yeah.
know that truck is expensive. And when I look at the pricing, you can get an XL version for a Ford, it's XL or your base work truck version. And for a Chevy right now, that truck is $80,000 for their work truck version, their lowest. Now it has a lot of extra things to it. That's what Josh reviewed, but still it's 80 grand, for a work truck. So I still
Yeah.
think that extra battery cost is something that Chevy is promoting the range, but as you have more charging units come in place, it's not going to matter as much. Once you have the higher charging rates, that's not going to be an issue. So those are some of the things that I think as it comes to play, love to have 400, love to see a lighter weight truck that can handle that. Don't know if that's going to be the case, but I do think my next truck will probably be the T3.
I don't think I'll be able to afford the T3 right away, but I'd
Depends
love
on the
to be
cost. I
able
mean, if
to.
they have like the Rivian where they have smaller models, I mean, maybe there's that option, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But
Oh, and I
anyways,
would love to have a ability to have 15,000 off, because my truck right now I can buy for $15,000 brand new. So maybe there's a way we can get a bonus on that to where we can trade our one in and get the benefit of that, because that does
would
kind of
not-
hurt too.
Would
absolutely.
not count on that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We just wanted to get on and kind of give a brief update on the 2-year. We'll both post content on the channel about our 2-year reviews. Jesse and I might do a combo, but we'll do something and have it up on the channel to watch and tune in. I mean, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, we have extra content beyond just the podcast. If you just listen to us on Spotify or one of those platforms, but tune in on YouTube, check us out. We got lots of content coming, and excited to continue to share EV news and updates. So tune in next week.
Next week, real quick, we are going to be working on a project on Thursday of this week, and we'll be doing the announcements to it. It involves the advanced air mobility and the aerospace. So look forward to that next week to discuss that as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Tune in next week.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to be notified when we post more episodes like this one. See you then.